And I am amazed to see so many people are still enduring the last hour after a long day, and it's really warm and not much oxygen in here maybe, so I totally understand if you fall asleep. And there are so many of you, I'm excited. I wish I was Freddie Mercury or something right now, going on for a rock concert, but I'm going to talk about interaction design. I hope you will enjoy that too. I will start with just briefly mentioning what is interaction design. Maybe some of you are super familiar, and for some of you, this is not a super common area. And I'm going to use a quote by Terry Winograd. He's a professor at in computer science at Stanford, and he said that interaction design is the design of spaces for human communication and interaction. And in this sense, it's about finding ways of supporting people. This contrasts with software engineering, for example, which focuses primarily on the production of software solutions for given applications. Throughout this presentation, I want you to remember supporting people. When we think about interaction design, a lot of us probably also think about interacting with a website on a computer or maybe on a mobile phone or a mobile application. But the fact is that we're interacting with computerized systems in so many different situations. And I would like to talk about two events that has taken place. So we start in the past here. Just to remind us of where these interactions are actually going on and how important it is that we get them right. I will start in 1986, 26th of April. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant is scheduled to do an experiment to test the potential safety of emergency core cooling, which takes place during a normal shutdown of the nuclear power plant. And something goes terribly wrong. And I think everyone in this room is aware of what happened. But we might not be aware of why it happened. It actually took quite a few years before one realized what had actually been going on. To begin with, of course, one screamed the human factor and that people were not following regulations, etc., in the nuclear power plant when it broke down. But in 1992, there was a new report coming out. And I'm going to keep this super duper briefly. Of course, this is a huge event, but I don't have time to stand here and talk about this forever, and I don't know everything either. But what's important for us here today to understand about design and the importance of design is that one had discovered that the few first seconds of control rod activation, there are these rods that one puts in a tube to get the whole power thing starting. And the main thing here is that when they did this, the reactor power output is increased. It's increasing more power rather than less power, which everyone in this unit thought that now when we're doing this, now we're putting this rod into this tube, the power is actually going to decrease, but it increased. And it was a behavior that is counterintuitive to every operator in this nuclear power plant. And there was nothing in this system that signaled or showed in any way to these operators that now the power is actually increasing. And this is one part of why the accident happened. So it was the interaction between the computerized system in this nuclear power plant and the operators that failed. So the Chernobyl accident is actually the result of design deficiencies. And I want us to remember that now. The next event that I want to mention briefly, again, it's a tragedy and it's a long story, and I have to keep it short again. It takes place in 2009. 31st of May 2009 at 22:03, Air France flight 447 departs from Rio de Janeiro International Airport, and it's destined for Paris Charles de Gaulle. At 1:36 in the night, the flight enters into extreme storm weather. And usually that is not a problem because the plane, they go above the storm. but at this time it happened so soon, so the flight was still fully loaded with gas, and they weighed a lot, so they actually had to go through the storm. That shouldn't be a problem either, because these pilots who are flying these flights, they're used to it, and the planes are built for going through storms. But at 2 in the morning, the captain is leaving the flight deck because he's going to take a nap. 15 minutes later, everyone on this plane is dead. And what happened? Again, it's a long story, it's a lot of different circumstances, and everyone was so spooked about this, and it was a mystery. How can a Boeing like this go down and crash into the ocean? It happens extremely rarely. But when they found the black box, they also found the whole communication pattern between the 2 co-pilots who were left in the cockpit when the captain had left. And what one realizes, again, I'm making a long story short, is that one of the co-pilots are panicking, and he's probably extremely stressed about what has happened, because the meter that shows speed is taken out. They don't know which speed that they're going in. And he is hanging on to the stick and trying to make the plane go faster. So what's happening is that they're stalling, which means that they have this type of angle that you have when you're taking off and where you're going down. So they're stalling, and they're not accelerating, they're actually descending really, really, really fast. The thing is that the other co-pilot, who's a little bit more experienced, who's not in charge of the stick right now, can't see in any way in this cockpit that his partner is panicking and hanging on to the stick, making the plane trying to lift all the time. The fact is that the sticks that each of these co-pilots are using are not synchronized. So there is nothing in his stick that indicates that my partner here is actually hanging on to his one. There is nothing in the signals and in the whole user interface display in front of them that tells him that. And at the same time, they don't know which speed that they're going in. It's a very uncommon accident, but it happened, and it was due to these non-synchronized sticks, you could say. And I think it's interesting because also this is kind of a sign of what actually happened, or the label on this problem with the whole accident, and that is that a wrongful death lawsuit maintaining that design and manufacturing defects supplied pilots with incorrect information, rendering them incapable of maintaining altitude and airspeed, have been filed in US courts. If it goes to the US courts like that, I think we know that it's serious, and they've been using design as a problem here to fight the, I guess, Air France or whoever it is that they're going to fight. Anyway, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that every day we trust computerized systems with our lives. Shouldn't it be our civil right then to demand that these systems are actually designed in a way so we, the users or the operators, knows exactly how to interact with them? You might sit here and think that that happens all the time, doesn't it? These are just 2 exceptions that she's using. It's a no-brainer. But I don't think it is a no-brainer. I work as a consultant, and I'm having to fight for budgets to do these types of systems all the time, and trying to find out what are the problems that we're actually going to solve. How are we going to interact with technology and computerized systems? But I'm going to come back to that. Let us look a little bit at the future first, because also that's why we're here. So I don't have any stories to tell you about the future because I haven't been to the future myself. But the thing is that when you look at the future of interaction design, there is actually a common denominator. And it's spelled TOMCRUISE. It's true. Take any movie with a futuristic interaction between human computers and it had Tom Cruise in it. All right, maybe not quite, but did you know that in my industry there is something that we call the minority report effect? And for those of you who were at the previous session and listened to Sriram, you would see that yes, we have to use this movie when we're talking about the vision of the future, because they got it right in so many ways. And why did they get it right? Yes, if you listen to Sriram, you know that they actually worked with researchers and scientists. There was a whole group of people from MIT working on this movie, telling them what is possible in the future. So 10 years later, we're actually starting to see the first gesture-based interfaces. Maybe some of you have heard about Leap, which is a product that more or less turns your computer screen into, well, a Tom Cruise movie. And let's have a look at the clip so you know what I'm talking about if you haven't seen the movie or if you have forgotten what's going on.
I show 8 Howard marks in the district, sorting by race and age.
Under license registration. See if I can capture an address here.
Running out of time. You know, I was thinking maybe I'd play hooky, stay home today. You're working too much.
Can you grab that?
It's unclear.
I got 6 licenses. Where do you want them?
Over here, please.
So this is one vision of future interaction design that it's coming true right now, actually. But we think it looks so awesome and so cool. The fact is that this is just another fancy mouse, because it's still indirect manipulation of objects. The mouse is also indirect manipulation of objects. We're still not actually touching and working with the items that we want to interact with and transform. And I've been thinking a lot, who is the target group for this kind of user interface? Because what professional group is used to standing up the whole day waving their arms in the air? Well, the hairdressers. So this must be the group of people they have in mind when they work with gesture interfaces, because these guys, and many of us in this room, we will have severe back pain after just 1 minute working with gestures using our arms. So the fact is that this vision can probably bring a lot of interesting things, but we also have to understand what problem is this type of interaction going to solve, and what are the issues with this type of interaction. First of all, your arms will get sore. Secondly, there is no tactile feedback, and I was so glad to hear Kate Hartman before today in her keynote speech, because she was talking about exactly this. Tactile feedback when we're interacting with objects. There is no tactile feedback when you're working with gestures. There is no precision either. I don't know if many of you have tried this type of interfaces and interacted in this way, but the fact is that it's really hard to understand where in space are my arms actually right now, and what is it that I'm soon to be able to touch in some kind of artificial way. And you're using also, and not to mention when your arms get sore and you're really tired in your arms, then it's going to be really hard to have any precision. And it takes a lot of space, and it's also a disconnected type of interaction pattern. Not having anything in your hands to work with is really, really disconnected. The next vision that I wanted to show you, I've taken out Terminator and exchanged Terminator for Google instead. Oh, sorry, we should take a little bit easy. Yes, you will see a vision with heads-up displays, because that's really what Terminator was using in their movies. He got this information in front of his eyes, which we thought also was really, really cool. And now Google is about to release glasses that can do this for us. And they also a vision for what they think this might be. And they've added voice commands to their glasses. And now we will see this short little movie of what this could look like in the future.
Yeah. Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2.
Yeah. So Voice is really good for asking questions and giving commands. And as you will see, if you noticed in this movie, they're making it kind of easy for themselves because there's always two choices to select in one way or the other. And voice is not really fantastic for creating and understanding. Understanding requires active exploration. And I don't know how you tell how you point at something in space with your voice. So voice is kind of limited, and they have shown a very limited vision of the future, but it probably works very, very good for some of these tasks, but definitely not for everything. And that's, again, something that we have to have in mind. What are the problems that we're going to solve? How are we going to support people, and which method is going to be the best one? The third vision that I wanted to show you is coming from a company called Corning, who are doing glass surfaces that are interactive. And I used to work, back in the 90s, I worked as an interaction designer at a web design agency called Razorfish. And the founders of Razorfish, they came up with this phrase that was very interesting. We mentioned it everywhere in every client meeting, and that was, anything that can be digital will be digital. And I think that Corning has probably updated that phrase a little bit, because they believe that anything that can have a digital screen will have a digital screen. It's also very, very fascinating. They have put probably loads of money into these marketing videos that they've uploaded to the internet. They're on YouTube and they're on Vimeo, and millions of people have watched this and think it's absolutely amazing. And now I'm going to show you a short piece of the vision from Corning and a day of glass. If it's probably 5 minutes long video, it's kind of amazing, and you will see a family go through a whole day with living with glass surfaces that are interactive. And when you look at this short piece, and if you look at the longer, it will be even more apparent that the fundamental interaction is swiping your finger along a flat surface. And there is almost nothing in the world that we manipulate naturally that way. And another thing that I think it's interesting that we should have in mind is that this is a remarkable change for a species that so far have lived in a world where scale of achievement is kind of correlated with the strength of sensory response. If you look back, we come from a world where we lifted a huge rock and we felt the weight in our hands and we felt it in our whole body, and our muscles were kind of tensed. And then we throw this rock at an animal or another human being or whatever, and we made this noise. And the heavier this rock was, the larger the noise we made. We used so many different senses to interact with something else. And today we have our eyes and the finger. And again, if you were at Kate Hartman's keynote speech, you saw what the computer thinks that we are, a big eye and one finger. And it's a little bit sad. I think it's a little bit limiting. And And that is not only it, that it might be boring to interact with your finger. There is another issue that I think that we should be aware of. Have you ever heard of finger blindness? Is there anyone in this room who know what finger blindness is? So let me tell you what finger blindness is. Or I'm not going to tell you. Actually, Matti Bergström, who is a Finnish neuroscientist, is going to tell you what it is. And I have used a quote to explain that. And it's the density of nerve endings in our fingertips, and it's enormous. Their discrimination is almost as good as that of our eyes. If we don't use our fingers, if in childhood and youth, we become finger blind. This rich network of nerves is impoverished, which represent a huge loss to the brain and towards the individual's all-around development. Such damage may be likened to blindness itself. Perhaps worse, when a blind person may simply not be able to find this or that object, the finger blind cannot understand its inner meaning and value. So we've all seen them. These little images in movies of our cute little babies when they're sitting there trying to swipe the physical magazine. And we think it's so cute, and we laugh at it. And we say, you know, my 2-year-old, he cannot even tie his shoelaces, but he knows how to use the iPad. And we think it's really cute. The fact is that in a dramatic future, if this goes on and on and on, this guy will never learn how to tie his shoelaces because he's become finger blind, because he used his little finger to touch a cold, hard surface growing up. Let's have that in mind, right? So what about the future then? I stand here and it seems like I hate gestures. I think that's bad, and I think that the iPad is bad, and I think that voice is bad, and I think that glasses are bad. I don't think that's bad at all. I think it's great for what we have right now, but I'm afraid that we take these visions that other people give us through sci-fi movies or through research centers, and we're fine with that. And we think that that's the future. That's what I'm going to use. You know, Steven Spielberg, he already came up with everything for me. I don't have to do anything else. So we don't focus on solving more problems. We don't focus on getting this innovation budget to understand how people really want to interact in the future. Let me show you a graph. That's one of my last slides, and some of you are probably going to hate me for this. This is a generalization of the budgets that I meet when I'm out as a consultant trying to work in different projects with new computerized services and systems. This is roughly what it looks like in a budget. Sometimes marketing and technology change places with each other depending on what kind of system it is that you're supposed to develop. And to be honest, my opinion, the table, or the staple, or whatever you call it in English, to the left, that shows how important companies think it is to send an advertising company to an exotic island to shoot a commercial which tells how good and great their products and services are. The one to the right tells us how important companies and brands think it is to avoid the Chernobyl accident. My last wish, and what I want you to bring with you from this speech today, is that technology doesn't just happen. Neither do interactions. We have a choice. We choose what vision to follow, how to spend our budgets, and what tasks to perform. The future is in our hands. Thank you.